Welcome to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight, and you've been carrying it around without even noticing, brushing it off as just another ordinary penny, maybe even dropping it into a jar without a second thought? Because today we're diving into a coin that looks completely normal at first glance but hides a story so rare and so shocking that collectors across the world would lose their minds trying to get their hands on it. And yes, we're talking about the 1950 Wheat Penny, a coin that has been whispered about in collector circles as one of those sleeper treasures that could, under the right circumstances, reach jaw-dropping values. And here's where it gets crazy, because certain rare variations and ultra-high-grade specimens of this very coin have been estimated in extreme collector hype scenarios to reach as high as $60 million. And before you roll your eyes thinking that sounds impossible, just wait until you hear the story behind it and why people are still hunting for this coin like it's buried treasure. And trust me, you'll want to stick till the end, because the next coin we'll uncover later is even more mysterious and surrounded by secrets that most collectors don't even talk about openly. So don't go anywhere, because this gets wild really fast. Now let's get into the heart of it. The 1950 Wheat Penny came at a time when America was stepping into a new era post-World War II. The economy was stabilizing, industries were booming, and the demand for coin production was rising again after wartime adjustments. The Wheat Penny itself, which had been around since 1909, featuring Abraham Lincoln on the front and those iconic wheat stalks on the back, was already a beloved design by collectors and everyday Americans alike. But 1950 wasn't just another year, it was a transition period where subtle minting, inconsistencies and overlooked details created the perfect storm for rare varieties to slip into circulation unnoticed. And that's exactly where the magic begins, because among millions of pennies produced that year, a few extremely rare variants started appearing with unique characteristics that made collectors stop and stare. Things like double dies, where the design appears slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during the minting process, off-center strikes where the coin design is not properly aligned on the blank planchet, and even die cracks that give the coin a one-of-a-kind fingerprint. And while most people would see these as defects, seasoned collectors see them as goldmines, because rarity is everything in the coin world, and the rarer the error, the higher the demand. And when you combine that with pristine condition coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, you suddenly have a coin that isn't just a piece of copper but a historical artifact that tells a story of imperfection turned into perfection. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. There have been documented cases where collectors stumbled upon seemingly ordinary 1950 wheat pennies in old jars, inherited collections, or even pocket change, only to discover later that they had a rare mint error or an exceptionally well-preserved specimen. And while most of these don't reach those extreme headline-grabbing values, the potential is always there, and that's what keeps the hunt alive. Imagine finding one in your own home right now, sitting quietly in a forgotten drawer, waiting to change your life. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, this is exactly why you need to keep watching, because the next coin we'll talk about later has an origin story that's even more unbelievable, involving wartime chaos and minting confusion that created one of the most talked about coins ever. But let's not jump ahead just yet, because the 1950 Wheat Penny still has more secrets to reveal. One of the biggest factors that drives its value is condition coins that have never been circulated, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can appear almost as if they were just minted yesterday, with sharp details, bright luster, and no signs of wear. And when such a coin is combined with a rare error or a low mintage from a specific mint location like Denver or San Francisco, the value can skyrocket, and collectors are willing to pay insane amounts just to own a piece of that rarity. And history and auctions have shown time and time again that when two passionate collectors go Head-to-head over a rare coin, the final price can reach levels that seem completely unreal to outsiders, and that's how stories of multi-million-dollar coins are born, not just from the metal itself but from the demand, the competition, and the legend that builds around it over time. Now think about this for a second. How many pennies have you handled in your life? How many times have you ignored them, dropped them, or spent them without a second thought? And what if one of those pennies had the potential to be worth more than everything you own combined? That's the kind of thought that keeps collectors awake at night and fuels the obsession, because every coin has a story, and sometimes that story is worth a fortune. And this is exactly why you should start paying closer attention to even the smallest details, because something as simple as a slight doubling in the lettering or an unusual shine could be the clue that you're holding something extraordinary. And remember, this journey doesn't end here, because coming up next is a coin that takes everything you thought you knew about pennies and flips it completely upside down. A coin born out of one of the most chaotic periods in history and surrounded by rumors that still haven't been fully explained. So make sure you stay locked in, because if you thought the 1950 wheat penny was impressive, the next one will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Next, 1945 wheat penny. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, because hidden within the chaos of the final days of World War II, a small batch of coins emerged that would later spark some of the wildest debates and collector hunts in numismatic history. And today we're diving into the 1945 wheat penny, a coin that most people would glance at and spend without hesitation, yet under very specific and rare conditions has been surrounded by claims and extreme collector hype, suggesting it could reach staggering values up to $70 million. And yes, that sounds insane, but once you understand the story behind this coin, you'll realize why it continues to capture the imagination of collectors around the world. Now here's where things start to get intense, because 1945 was not just any year, it was the final chapter of a global war that had already forced the United States Mint to make unusual decisions with coin production earlier in the decade, including experimenting with different metals like steel in 1943 due to copper shortages, and by 1945, as the war was coming to an end, production was ramping back toward normal, but the systems were still recovering from years of pressure. And that's exactly when small inconsistencies and minting anomalies began to appear, especially at the Denver Mint, which is marked by that small but powerful D beneath the date on the coin. And while millions of these pennies were produced, a handful came out with characteristics so unusual that they immediately stood out to sharp-eyed collectors. Things like dramatic die cracks that split across Lincoln's portrait, creating almost lightning-like patterns across the surface, double die errors where the date or lettering appears shadowed or slightly duplicated, and off-metal strikes, which are among the rarest possibilities, where a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or composition. And these are the kinds of errors that can turn a simple penny into a legend, because they were never meant to exist, and yet somehow they slipped through quality control and entered circulation unnoticed. Now imagine being the person who finds one of these rare variants in a roll of old pennies or inside a dusty box passed down through generations. That's not just luck, that's the kind of moment collectors dream about for years. And here's the thing that makes the 1945 wheat penny even more fascinating: its connection to a time of global transition adds an emotional weight to its story. This wasn't just a coin, it was minted at a moment when the world was shifting from war to peace, when factories were changing gears, and when the smallest details could easily be overlooked. And that's how some of the most valuable mistakes in coin history are born. And over the years there have been whispers of ultra-rare specimens of the 1945 wheat penny showing up in private collections, coins so well preserved and so unique in their Features that they become the centerpiece of auctions where collectors are willing to push prices to unbelievable levels, and while not every 1945D penny is valuable, the possibility that one could be extraordinary is what keeps the hunt alive, because all it takes is one rare feature, one unusual detail, and suddenly that ordinary coin becomes something people would fight over. And this is exactly why you should never underestimate the coins you come across, because somewhere out there someone has already found one of these hidden gems, and chances are there are still more waiting to be discovered, maybe even closer to you than you think. And let's talk about condition for a second, because this is where things really separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. A heavily circulated 1945D penny might show wear scratches and fading details, but an uncirculated example with full luster, sharp edges, and no signs of use can command significantly higher interest. And when you combine that with a rare mint error or a unique strike characteristic, the value can explode beyond what most people would ever expect. And that's how stories of coins reaching insane numbers start circulating in the collecting world, fueled by real discoveries, intense bidding wars, and the constant search for the next big find. And here's something that will really make you think: how many times have you ignored a penny from the 1940s, assuming it's just old and worthless, when in reality it could hold a secret that only a trained eye would notice? This is why collectors spend years studying the smallest details, because the difference between an ordinary coin and a life-changing one can be almost invisible to the untrained eye. And that's what makes this hobby so addictive. Every coin is a mystery waiting to be solved, and sometimes that mystery comes with a price tag that changes everything. And now, as we reach the end of this story, you can see why the 1945D Wheat Penny isn't just another coin. It's a symbol of how history, mistakes, and rarity can collide to create something truly extraordinary. A coin that most people would never think twice about, yet holds the potential to become one of the most talked about treasures in the collecting world. And if you've been paying attention, you already know what this means. It's time to start checking your own coins more carefully, because the next incredible discovery could be sitting right in front of you, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it.